The story begins with Kamishiro making the same old commute to do the same old job every single day of his miserable life. He was always told that a routine-filled life would lead to happiness, but deep inside there was a small part of him that wanted something different. One day, Kamishiro looks closely at a strange scene on his TV, and to his shock, he suddenly gets teleported somewhere. A mysterious man appears and says that he is the one who manages the solar system, which makes Kamishiro wonder if that means he's an alien. The man explains that he's closer to a god and shows Kamishiro a planet called Matthias. This planet has failed to thrive no matter what they do, as civilizations on Matthias keep dying out every now and then, and this failure has gone on for too long. So, the god has decided to do something more drastic. He will give this planet a single drop of water, because even just one drop can create giant waves capable of changing the entire planet. Surprisingly, he has chosen Kamishiro to be this drop of water. In Kamishiro's eyes, this is quite the responsibility, but the god explains that Kamishiro isn't alive anymore anyway. If he doesn't go, he will simply vanish along with his soul. To make the deal better, the god offers to give Kamishiro special powers. He starts by giving him magic and maxed out mana, but he also wants to know what else Kamishiro desires. Hearing this, Kamishiro instantly goes from skeptical to excited, and boldly declares that he wants cute partners to join him on his quest. Much to his delight, the god assures him that he will meet them in time, and then he continues adding even more powers. He strengthens Kamishiro's search ability and makes it possible for him to earn money by selling materials. He provides him with a handbag to carry all his gathered materials, and also grants him the ability to understand every language in the world. To bolster his defense, the god gives Kamishiro several resistances. Just then, Kamishiro begins to disappear, which means it's almost time for him to leave. The god briefly wonders if he gave Kamishiro too many abilities, but it's already too late to go back. However, he does express concern when he sees who Kamishiro's partner will be, and he questions if it will really be okay. This naturally makes Kamishiro freak out, but there is no time for an explanation. The god simply tells him that he will be fine, and moments later, Kamishiro wakes up in his new world in his new body. Unsure of what exactly he's supposed to do, Kamishiro decides to look for a place with people, and eventually finds a village. However, he quickly realizes that he won't be able to buy food without any money. Just then, he remembers that the god had strengthened his search ability so he could find materials to sell. When Kamishiro activates his search magic ability, nothing happens at first, which disappoints him. Then he realizes he was pronouncing it wrong. So when he says it correctly, little symbols pop up everywhere. These symbols show him where materials are located, and when he uses the word scan, he can see even more detailed information about them. Kamishiro is thrilled to have such helpful abilities, and he can't believe his luck when the very first material he gathers turns out to be B rank. He continues gathering materials from the areas marked by his ability, but most of them turn out to be low ranks. Still, he remains motivated until he finds a strange-looking stone that catches his attention. He thinks it might be valuable because of how pretty it looks, but to his confusion, it turns out to just be a turd, though somehow it is labeled as C rank. Even though it's disgusting, Kamishiro is still pleased, because now he understands that the things he can sell are categorized by different symbols, and he can find them easily with his search ability. With his bag now full of materials, Kamishiro can't wait to see how much money he can earn. So he rushes into the village. At the gate, the guard assumes that Kamishiro must be a knight because of his tall and imposing stature, but Kamishiro corrects him by saying he's just a seller of materials. The guard, who introduces himself as Marlowe, explains that this would make Kamishiro a gathering specialist, which is quite rare. He also tells him that while they don't have a specialized material store, they do have a general store. Kamishiro goes straight there, and to his surprise, the shop owner becomes amazed when Kamishiro shows him the turd. The man identifies it as the feces of a hammer anteater, and is extremely impressed by its shape and color. He even praises Kamishiro for doing such a great job finding such an exquisite item, and offers him 5 gold coins for it. Kamishiro has no idea how much that's worth, so the shopkeeper explains that one night at an inn costs 500 raves, and 1 gold coin is worth 1,000 raves. Doing the math, Kamishiro is shocked to realize that this man is willing to pay the equivalent of $400 for a piece of turd. The shopkeeper gets overly excited when Kamishiro accepts his offer, even rubbing the turd on his face in admiration, which horrifies Kamishiro. After that, Kamishiro shows him the rest of his haul, and the shopkeeper can't believe Kamishiro collected it all by himself. He wonders why someone would bring such great items to a shop in the middle of nowhere, and Kamishiro simply says that he enjoys traveling while gathering different materials. Impressed by his skills, the shopkeeper asks him for a favor. There's some mythal ore located in a nearby mountain, and he wants Kamishiro to retrieve it for him. Always up for an adventure, Kamishiro accepts, and the shopkeeper pays him 360,000 raids for all of his items. When Kamishiro does the conversion, he nearly faints, realizing that it's almost $25,000. Before he leaves, the shopkeeper warns him that there are monsters on the mountain, but expresses confidence that Kamishiro can handle it. Before setting out, Kamishiro spends the night at an inn, where a girl brings him a bowl of water that costs 30 raids. When she explains that it's to clean himself with, Kamishiro is shocked. He would much rather take a bath, but to his dismay, the girl tells him there are no baths in town. Only sorcerers can clean people using magic, but there aren't any around here. Hearing the word magic gives Kamishiro an idea, so he pays the girl and, once alone, tries a few words. When he says, "clean," the magic activates, and moments later, he finds himself cleaner than he has ever been in his entire life. This makes him realize that he can perform all kinds of magic as long as he finds the right words for it. On his way to the mountain, Kamishiro begins to get the hang of things, and for the first time he encounters a spade symbol. Curious, he goes to investigate, but is horrified to find that it marks a skeleton. His ability is even able to show him the name of the person who died and their rank. Next to the skeleton, Kamishiro finds a family amulet, and his ability shows that it was made by the man's mother. When he opens a letter inside, he finds it's from the man's sister, urging him not to push himself too hard. Feeling a sense of responsibility, Kamishiro buries the skeleton before moving on. Later, he sets up camp, creates a barrier around himself, and prepares a stew using the herbs he collected, even adding some seasoning. When he tastes it, he's amazed at how delicious it is and declares that getting isekai'd was the best thing to ever happen to him. Eventually, Kamishiro reaches the Forest of Ancient Dragons, a dangerous place filled with monsters. He uses light magic to see the symbols around him, but notices there are no ores or animals nearby. He wonders if it's because he smells bad, but decides not to worry, since it means he won't get attacked. However, just as he sees the end of the forest, he realizes too late that the ground beneath his feet has disappeared, and he plummets off a cliff. While falling, Kamishiro frantically cycles through every word he can think of, but nothing works. Float doesn't work, levitate doesn't work. But when he finally says fly, the spell activates, and he manages to land safely. He's ecstatic to find ore symbols all around him, and he eagerly begins gathering as much as he can. Still, he doesn't find any mythal ore until he notices a faint symbol deep within a mountain wall, saying blaze. He fires a fireball to break through the wall and finally discovers the ore, though there isn't very much. Suddenly, the cave starts to shake, but instead of leaving, Kamishiro decides to explore further. Going deeper, he comes across a strange pool of water clearer than anything he has ever seen. Scanning it reveals that it's double S rank, making it the most valuable thing he's found so far. The scan also explains that the water contains the magical element of an ancient dragon, which means a dragon must live there. Kamishiro doesn't worry about that and prepares to take some water. Before filling his container, he decides to test if the water is drinkable by taking a handful. Just then, a massive dragon emerges from the water, furious that Kamishiro didn't respond to him. In disbelief, Kamishiro faces the terrifying beast, but the dragon is surprised as well. Kamishiro is able to withstand his overwhelming presence. Kamishiro quickly apologizes for intruding, and the dragon is impressed by his courage. Kamishiro introduces himself as a human, though the dragon finds that hard to believe, since he felt such an overwhelming amount of mana from him, enough to rival even his own. The dragon introduces himself as Valdius, the ancient dragon, and reveals that he has a request. Acknowledging Kamishiro's purity and strength, Valdius believes he might be able to awaken his child, whose egg refuses to hatch. To motivate him, Valdius offers a large amount of mythal ore as a reward. He shows Kamishiro the egg and instructs him to pour his mana into it, just like when he created light earlier. Kamishiro says heat to warm the egg, but as his power surges, he realizes something is wrong. Suddenly, his body is pulled into the egg, and he panics, thinking he just arrived in this world and wanted to see more of it before dying. But instead of dying, he finds himself in a strange place where a girl appears, calling him reckless. At first, Kamishiro thinks she might be the god from earlier, but soon realizes she's someone else. The girl explains that she's been meddling with this planet for tens of thousands of years, but Kamishiro caused a massive ripple in just one day, which she doesn't like. Before he can ask more, she simply sends him away. Kamishiro is confused when he returns to the world, but relieved when he sees that the egg has successfully hatched. Valdius asks him to name the baby dragon, though Kamishiro hesitates at first. Valdius explains that the child already has its true name, and he just wants Kamishiro to give it a common one. Kamishiro agrees and names the baby dragon Black. Valdius tells Black to explore the world freely, and the newborn dragon immediately joins Kamishiro's party, though Kamishiro points out that Black was just born and questions whether it's safe to send him with a stranger. Valdius isn't worried. He assures Kamishiro that he's stronger than even him and feels safe leaving his child in his care. As a reward, Valdius shoots a beam at Kamishiro's bag, filling it with mythal ore, before saying goodbye. Overjoyed, Kamishiro formally asks Black to accompany him on his journey as a gatherer, and the little dragon happily agrees. Kamishiro couldn't be happier, and before setting off, he even uses magic to clean up his new stinky little companion. After giving Bee a good bath to get rid of its stinky smell, mainly to protect his own poor nose during their upcoming adventures, Takaru exits the cave with the cheerful baby dragon buzzing excitedly around the forest. Watching Bee flap its tiny wings and dart through the air, Takaru decides it's better not to travel at night and instead sets up camp for the evening. Feeling hungry, he prepares to cook and pulls out a flask of magic elemental water. As he looks at it, he recalls how V once connected his bag to the magic lake, allowing him to easily draw food and water for B whenever needed. B eagerly drinks from the flask, then adorably asks for more. So Takaru gives her another cup, only for B to offer that cup back to him, insisting he drink some too. Amused, Takaru takes a sip of the refreshing water, feeling instantly revitalized. Next, he sets down a few glowing magic stones and casts a protective barrier around them. As he watches the stones shimmer, Takaru remembers how rare and valuable they are in this world, yet he casually uses them like disposable batteries, simply because he can create more with his own mana. He sighs and admits to himself that he's probably the only man who can waste precious magic stones just to make dinner easier. Heating one of the stones to act like a portable stove, Takaru begins cooking steak and stew, his favorite meal. Bee watches in awe, her eyes wide and sparkling as the smell fills the air. When the food's finally ready, Takaru notices Bee drooling, though he worries whether human food might upset her tiny dragon tummy. Testing a small bite on her, Bee instantly burns her mouth, squealing in pain. Laughing, Takaru cools down the food by blowing on it like a doting parent and feeds her again. This time, Bee eats happily, tail wagging as she fills her belly and curls up in satisfaction. Watching the little dragon roll around lazily, Takaru wonders aloud why she doesn't seem sad about being separated from her father. In response, Bee simply hugs him, or rather, wraps around him with her tiny wings, and Takaru smiles, realizing she's genuinely happy living with him. Curious about her potential, he checks her stats and nearly chokes when he sees that this supposedly baby dragon already ranks as a powerful B-class creature with multiple elemental abilities. Still, Takaru reminds himself that even strong kids need guidance, so he scolds her gently, warning her not to do anything dangerous. Midway through his lecture, Bee falls asleep, snoring softly. Takaru sighs and wonders whether the space manager paired him with a reptile partner just to test his patience. The next morning, Takaru climbs up the mountain and returns to the forest, pleasantly surprised at how peaceful it looks in daylight. While Bee plays nearby, he uses his search skill to find herbs to sell, but before long, Bee flies back trembling with fear. Activating his detection skill, Takaru senses several monsters approaching. He realizes that after washing off his monster-repelling stench in the cave, he's now fully back on the menu. Deciding to get some monster loot anyway, he prepares for battle, and almost immediately, a ferocious rock falcon screeches behind him. Takaru turns, unimpressed, calling it adorable compared to that nightmare meatball from last time. Spotting the bird's plump body, he grins and mutters, "Guess we're having KFC tonight." As the falcon charges, he forms an ice shield and fires sharp icicles, turning the giant bird into a neatly frozen chicken dinner. Then come the serpent wolves, lean, fast, and very bitey. One lunges at him, but Takaru activates his speed enhancement skill, leaps into the air, hardens his legs with mana, and delivers a skull-crushing kick straight down. The others fall just as fast. When a sneaky wolf tries a back attack, Takaru casually knocks it away with one hand, muttering that even Earth's mosquitoes were more annoying. After collecting meat and monster materials, he senses even more enemies nearby and groans. "Seriously? I'm not running a meat factory here!" Not wanting to spend all day fighting, he plans to retreat, but before he can, Bee swoops in, grabs him, and tries to lift him into the sky. Takaru laughs, thinking there's no way the tiny dragon can lift him, until it actually does. Shocked, he quickly casts a weight reduction spell to make the flight easier. B flaps furiously, rocketing upward, and before Takaru can say NASA, they're soaring through the clouds. Too high! Too high! He shouts, and B, taking it literally, panics and drops him. Thankfully, he lands safely, waking up with B licking his face. Looking around, he realizes she's flown them completely out of the forest. He praises her speed and strength, but gently reminds her not to overdo it next time, since he's not as durable as she is. Delighted by the praise, B tries to hug him, and instead headbutts his stomach. As they continue walking toward Tormi Village, B notices a strange branch in Takaru's hand. He explains it's the Yggdrasil branch, an SS rank legendary artifact he's had since his first day in this world. Sadly, it's been inactive this whole time, but when B blows a puff of smoke on it, the branch glows to life. Takaru stands frozen, wide-eyed as the dormant relic awakens. Excited, he holds it up like a staff and jokes that he finally looks like a proper magician instead of a wandering herb seller. Suddenly, a growl echoes from the forest, and Takaru warns B to stay alert. But before he can stop her, the baby dragon zooms off toward the sound. Chasing after her, Takaru finds B circling a tree where a young elf girl lies unconscious. He wonders if a monster attacked her, but her rumbling stomach answers the question. She's just starving. The elf weakly asks for water, and Takaru immediately hands her some from his magic bag. She gulps it down, sighing in relief, then shyly admits she's still hungry. Remembering his leftover lunch, Takaru gives her a sandwich, which she devours like a wild animal. Watching an elf, a creature he thought would be elegant and graceful, scarf down food with crumbs flying everywhere, Takaru is stunned. "I thought elves were supposed to eat flowers or something," he mutters. The girl thanks him between bites, calling his food divine. He laughs awkwardly, saying that even stale bread tastes heavenly when you're starving. She insists she's feeling much better now, though she can't believe how quickly she ran out of supplies. Takaru scolds her for leaving the village so carelessly without food or a map. When he points out that she smells more like a compost heap than a flower field, the elf gasps in outrage and storms off, embarrassed and offended. After she disappears into the trees, Takaru shrugs, muttering, "Guess I'm not getting invited to the Elf Kingdom anytime soon." He gathers more materials on his way out of the forest, and soon spots a carriage approaching. As it nears, he notices it's pulled by an elegant E-rank unicorn horse. The driver, a friendly man named Poron, greets him and asks what he's doing out here alone. Takaru explains he's heading to Tormi Village on foot, which surprises Poron. His wife Eliza and their 2 kids peek curiously from inside the carriage. Seeing the staff in his hands, Poron assumes Takaru's a magician, but he waves it off, saying he's just a gatherer. Impressed, Poron insists he join them on the ride to Tormi. At first, Takaru refuses, worried his size will break the carriage, but the kids beg him to come. Giving in, he sits at the back, though his huge frame makes the entire cart wobble slightly. Poron laughs, teasing him about his size, while his kids giggle non-stop. Feeling embarrassed, Takaru apologizes, but Poron assures him it's no problem and says he's glad to help a fellow traveler. When Poron's daughter Yunan offers Takaru a handmade gift, he's touched and asks why they trust him so easily. Their son Kin proudly explains that if Takaru were dangerous, their magical bell would have alerted them. Looking at the enchanted item, Takaru quietly thinks he could make one even better. Soon, B starts moving inside his bag, making strange noises. The kids hear it and ask what it is, so Takaru awkwardly admits it's a pet. Eliza tells him it's fine. Adventurers often travel with tamed monsters, so he lets B out. The children immediately fall in love with the adorable black dragon, petting her non-stop. Poron and Eliza are speechless. Dragons are incredibly rare, yet here's one sitting on their laps. To hide the truth, Takaru lies that she's just a normal black dragon, definitely not an ancient one. The family assumes he's a dragon knight, but Takaru laughs, explaining that he simply found and hatched a random egg. Poron nearly drops his reins in shock, exclaiming that hatching a dragon egg alone is practically impossible. Curious, Takaru asks Eliza how rare dragons are, and she explains that even dragon knights are rare, but real dragons are nearly mythical. Takaru grins, thinking it's just like one of his favorite RPG quests come to life. Later that night, they stop to rest. Takaru sets up a protective barrier using magic stones, and Poron feels relieved knowing no monsters can get close. B patrols the area like a tiny guardian, making the family feel even safer. When Eliza starts preparing dinner, Takaru offers to cook instead. Pulling out his portable cooking set from his bag, the kids gasp in awe, thinking it's magic. But Takaru chuckles and says it's just bottomless storage. Soon, the delicious aroma fills the camp, and everyone eagerly digs in after Takaru gives the signal. The kids are instantly delighted, While Eliza praises the flavor, Poron stays silent for a moment, shoulders trembling, until he bursts into tears, snot running down his face, crying, This is real food! He wails about all the bland dried meat he's been eating on the road, making everyone laugh, including Takaru, who can barely breathe from giggling. After dinner, Poron takes out a guitar and strums a cheerful tune while Eliza sings softly beside him. The kids dance around, and Takaru joins them, playing with B and laughing freely for the first time in ages. Watching the warm family share music and joy under the starlit sky, he remembers his lonely life back on Earth. Feeling deeply grateful, Takaru looks up at the shimmering night and thinks that maybe, just maybe, this icy sky world has given him a new chance at happiness. With B curled up beside him, softly snoring, Takaru lies back, smiling at the stars, ready for whatever adventure tomorrow might bring.